We have come to a place where being able to read the politics, Kenyan politics especially, is extremely important. You see, when it suddenly gets very humid, even if there's no single cloud in the sky, you know rain is not far. It is the same with politics. And especially for people who have been doing this a long time, you see the telltale signs early. Well, I have some breaking news that is rather huge. Something that many Kenyans have not been able to see, that humidity before the big rain. Actually, this is a tsunami which is coming. And it is the tsunami of independent candidates. Okay? What? How will this happen? What are the signs? Are you sure, Chris? Well, stick around on my show today and find out some super fascinating things that are already unfolding in our politics and what we should expect, very shortly. In fact, if you didn't know, independent candidates are already ruling our politics. Okay, but we'll come back to that shortly. Also on my show today, I would like to touch on one or two issues that are still developing in the early stages. Therefore, it is difficult to be able to see how they will end. But I have that disturbing feeling that these issues are going to grow into very big giants, tsunamis. Karibuni sana to my show. I have made every effort to make sure you enjoy. Twende kazi. Before we dive into the tsunami of independent candidates in Kenyan politics, allow me a few minutes to touch on one or two issues that are developing in our politics and indeed in regional politics that are of great concern and that we should pay attention to. Okay? President Ruto recently had an interview with Al Jazeera. Now, I like to understand things. I really do. Because of course you can't analyze without first understanding what is happening. And then you analyze and it makes sense. But when you don't understand, you're just asking questions with no answers. The truth is, I am totally stumped. I can't understand, and I've tried very hard. I can't understand what that Al Jazeera interview was all about. Because first of all, it exposed Ruto to the entire world to see. In my opinion, and indeed in the opinion of many Kenyans, because I've seen comments on social media, it was a disaster. Ruto would have been much better off not doing that particular interview. What was the objective anyway? What was the objective? I'm a student and I'm willing to learn. I wish somebody would give me a 1-hour lecture to explain to me what the strategy is here. Because it is very clear this is a case of somebody shooting themselves in the foot. I don't see it any other way. Starting with the audience. What is the audience of Al Jazeera? Important decision makers, international community, donor community, powerful political forces globally. These are very intelligent people. They can read between the lines. They can analyze body language, which by the way is impossible to fake. Okay? And what came out of this interview was a total disaster. Maybe the only people who would appreciate this are some people in a very remote area of the Rift Valley who would say something like, "Aya, mzungu amemuuliza swali na amejibu." Ako na akili sana. Kama mzungu anaweza muuliza kitu na ajibu, huyu jamaa ako mbele. Something like that. Otherwise, any person who is aware and exposed, this was a total disaster. And the disasters continue of the Ruto presidency. There are many, and they continue. I found it super fascinating when he was asked the question about what is currently going on in neighboring Tanzania. That body language was classic. He was so nervous. It was clear. Why would he be nervous? Well, if you missed my last video, you may not be able to understand. But the mauaji that took place in Tanzania are very closely linked to what we saw with our Gen Zs, very tragic, Kina Rex Masai, etc., etc. It is linked to the mauaji in Kenya. Very closely linked. Please make sure you catch that video if you've not yet taken it in. It is important. Very important. Now, Tanzania. The crisis in Tanzania has escalated. Why? Because of too much exposure. Various human rights organizations globally seem to have been gathering evidence very fast of mass graves, mauaji ya wananchi, and now it is beginning to look like that figure we were given, which looked like it was impossible. This can't be true. Now it is starting to look like that figure we were given may even be conservative. Over 3,000 innocent Tanzanians were sent prematurely to meet their maker. That is a huge number. It is over 3 times the official figure that was given in Kenya over the 2007-2008 clashes. Oh yes. And clearly the take-home lesson here is that when you do this kind of thing, you need to think ahead and plan ahead and understand what the consequences of what you're doing are, and especially how people will respond. For instance, you rig an election and you give yourself 97%. You know that is now a joke across the globe. 97%. Simple common sense would have told somebody that is mathematically impossible in politics. Impossible. Something else. After you have done your evil mauaji, how do you dispose of the evidence? You know, in Kenya, during the Gen Z uprising, when they were doing this kind of evil, at least they were a little smart. Okay? They used a place called Quarry, which passes through Quarry police station. Okay? Right next to a cop shop. And I believe if we were in another season, and not this season of exposure, nobody would ever have known. By the way, do you know how the Quarry dump site for maiti ya Gen Zs zilikuwa zimemwaga huko? Do you know how it was discovered? Many people don't believe. A woman, a young woman who is very prayerful, lost her sister, and she went into serious prayer, and she was shown in a dream the Quarry area, and the rest is history. Believe it or not, that is how it was discovered. Anyway, in Tanzania they did not have a plan, and what is happening now is that human rights organizations and other interested parties and those powerful global political watu wa homa ya mchina who want to get hold of the riches within Tanzania, they have all ganged up and financed something that is a nothing evidence, very specific. They are actually mentioning places and locations where this mass, makaburi, where people are buried, they're exposing exactly where they are. Now, I think it is very obvious what that means politically for the government of President Samia Hassan. To spell it out, kwisha maneno. It is only a matter of time. Indeed, I am very reliably informed that the ICC at The Hague, the International Criminal Courts, are already on this one. They are already on this one. So it is only a matter of time. And you see, the government in Tanzania is still blindly rushing forward. The internet, of course, is still switched off, and therefore they believe they cannot be seen, and they're rushing blindly forward. Opposition leaders are being arrested, etc., etc. They're continuing with their program without even stopping for a minute to assess what has happened so far. Can we change the plan, or is the plan still sound? It is a disaster. Anyway, and let us not even talk about who executed this and how it links very closely to the country called Uganda and even Kenya. Make sure you catch that video, my previous video, with that information, because in there I made a prediction that what is going to happen, only because of this foreign involvement in Tanzania, leave alone the other many things ambayo itasindikisha, no, leave those ones, mainly because of this one, we're going to get a change of regime in the following order: Tanzania, Uganda, and then finally Kenya. Okay? Hold me to that prediction. And you'll be happy to know, regulars here already know, that I don't run away from the predictions I make. Contrary to what some government bloggers are writing in the comments area of most of my videos. I don't. I'll come back and I'll say I was wrong. Okay? So hold me to that one. I have a terrible, nagging feeling that I am absolutely right, and that mahesabu yangu yanaingiana. That is what's going to happen. Anyway, let's get on with our main topic for today: the tsunami, which is already here, of independent candidates. Now, when Kenyans were fighting the Kanu regime, it was not possible in our motherland for an independent candidate to present themselves in an election. All that changed with the new constitution. Okay? And of course it is true, we're yet to see independent candidates making an impact in any general election in Kenya. But now, the environment and the circumstances favor an independent candidate. Okay, let me break that down. You know, this should excite us. Why? Because if this tsunami of independent candidates actually happens, it is the best way to beat the system. I'm going to go into that immediately after we've broken down this. Okay? Now, currently in Kenya, there is no successful popular political party. Are we in agreement? ODM, you know what happened. The founder and the party leader left us recently. And you can see what is going on within the party. There is a lot of panic. There is upheaval. People are now realizing that it is not very easy to get the masses behind them. Because the glue that was holding the political party called ODM together is gone. It's as simple as that. The ruling UDA party. When is the last time you heard of the UDA party positively? In fact, what is happening right now, many UDA members are doing their politics while making every effort to distance themselves from that name UDA or from any association with the UDA. That is very clear. Bottom line, the era of waves caused by political parties is clearly over. Okay? What wave am I talking about? Let's explain everything so that nobody is left in any doubt. The wave of political parties is where a major presidential candidate has a political party behind them, and people in that political party mainly because of that presidential candidate, and usually it is tied to tribal politics. Okay? That era, kwisha maneno. I think that should be clear to everybody. In case you have not noticed, the Kenyan voter amepelekwa shule bila viatu. The Kenyan voter has been taught a lesson they will not forget in a hurry. That when you vote for somebody, there are consequences. There have always been consequences. But the consequences this time, taxation like there is no tomorrow. The government not listening and not caring and doing their own things. And this is the political class, walitupanga, they put us in compartments for their benefit. You know what happens during past general elections in Kenya? They incited tribe against tribe for their own benefit. And then, very important, they ensured that they have the right majority in parliament to pass bills, very unpopular ones, like Finance Bill 2023 and the tragic Finance Bill 2024. Remember? And many other laws that don't make sense. Many laws that are in fact unconstitutional. Okay? Now, when you have independent candidates who the people have interrogated carefully and are watching carefully, countrywide, it becomes impossible, very difficult for the executive to get his majority in parliament to pass whatever laws they feel like. Okay? Now, of course, the executive can decide to use money, and buy MPs and buy his majority in parliament. But that is going to be highly unlikely. You see, it is much easier when you have a party and everybody is under that umbrella. You just have a parliamentary group meeting, and you sort out things quickly. But when you have independent individual candidates dominating the National Assembly, the whole game changes. Kabisa. Yes, you may be able to buy a few, but then also remember that the voters who have voted in that individual are watching them very carefully. And of course, they have learned from the past, and this is the thing they will really, really be looking out for. They will constantly be asking themselves and each other, has our MP been bought yet? And so, it will be extremely difficult. And guess what? Then, our constitution will kick in and start working the way it is supposed to be working. Which, in case you have forgotten, Parliament is supposed to be oversight over the executive, not receiving instructions from State House. No! That's the old system, which our political class are stuck within their minds. To them, there is no other way of governing. There is no other way. Well, breaking news for them. There is another way. It happens in other democracies across the globe. Okay? Now, admittedly, the sign that this is coming may be difficult to see in the upcoming by-elections. because there are so many issues there. Government has poured in money, the seats are few, etc., etc. But we have quite a number of independent candidates. And therefore, I'm not expecting those independent candidates to do well. Okay? I may be wrong. They may surprise me. But the way I'm reading the politics on the ground over these by-elections, it's a do or die for some people. They have to give the perception that they're still popular, that they're still a party, a political party. They have to give that perception when everybody knows UDA kwisha maneno. Yeah? I don't think even President Ruto is going to vie in 2027 on a UDA ticket. No! He's going to do a Kibaki. Kibaki abandoned DP and vied for the 2007 presidential elections with a brand new party called PNU. And therefore this desperation to create an impression is going to muddy the water so much that we're not going to be able to get a clear picture from the by-elections. But I am certain in the next general elections, whenever that will be, it will be dominated by independent candidates. I don't know if you've noticed, even in current politics, parties are not as important as they were before. Okay? The media and even analysts are focusing more on the individual. Former Chief Justice David Maraga, what party does he belong to? Even former CS Interior Matiang'i, of course he belongs to the Jubilee Party, but how are people discussing him and looking at him? They're looking at him as an individual called Matiang'i, who is backed not by Jubilee, but is backed by another individual called Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. I'm sure you get my drift. It is going to be a tsunami for independence. And I believe already our politics is swinging in that direction. But let's wait and see what happens, shall we? In my opinion, the last nail on the coffin of party politics was the passing on of ODM founder and leader Raila Amolo Odinga. That was the last straw. Party politics in Kenya, kwisha maneno. Watu kupangwa in parties for the convenience of those seeking power, so that they may be able to do what they want to do, so that they may be able to get unpopular bills passed, so that they may be able to do what they're doing right now, looting at the speed of light. That era is gone. And even those strategists who are on the drawing table must now come up with brand new ideas, which will be quite a tall order. And therefore, independence will dominate. Now, talking about the late Raila Amolo Odinga, increasingly, many Kenyans are starting to believe, yes, Raila was old, but his passing on, there are too many mysteries linked to it, too many question marks. And I would highly recommend that if you've not seen my very latest, highly sensitive special report that has a lot of details on this topic, I recommend that you go for it as soon as possible, because it will open your eyes. And this special report is not my views, no. It points to specific pieces of evidence. And it gives in great detail exactly how this thing was done. And not only that, it also explains other similar assassinations that have taken place in Kenya, which have used the same methods, where the start date of the assassination and when it actually happens could be months apart, even a year. Oh yes. Please listen to this very brief excerpt from a special report, to get an idea of what I'm talking about. How this hero of Kenya passed passed on. This is so sad. Listen in. It was executed by introducing two specially designed pills in a normal pill box, where the patient is supposed to take one pill per day. Just two rogue pills were introduced, and we know there are two because one was found and it was assumed the other one was taken because the symptoms and everything that happened, what his dead body was telling experts, this is exactly what he took that ended his life. Now the usual dosage for ephedrine is 12.5 milligrams, 25 milligrams tops every 4 hours. Now, these killer pills were 1000 milligrams. Now remember, we're talking about assassinations where the start date and the date where it finally happens are very far apart. So in this particular instance, we do not know. As I told you, this thing is very detailed, and you can get it in your inbox within no time. Pop! For only Kenya shillings 3999, Kenya shillings 3,999. I believe you can see details on your screens right now. Please move with speed. This offer is about to end. But then you can also do better than that. You can get a golden key. Now the last offer ended, but now you can get an annual golden key, a golden key that will take you for a whole year of getting everything and anything kumekucha, also including what we have produced in the past, for only Kenya shillings 5,999. Okay, please take full advantage of this. Details on your screens right now. However, if you've been a supporter of this channel for a long time, and you can easily prove it, for instance, maybe you're a member of the weekly intelligence briefings, then you have a small window of opportunity to get the life golden key for that very special price of the offer that has ended of Kenya shillings 6,555. Details on your screens right now. Please rush. This is a very small window of opportunity for you to act. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.